In 2017 follows a group of kids from the 1980s that have to battle an evil celestial being that has preyed on Derry, Maine residents for hundreds of years. It's fed on Derry's residents and uses the person's fear against them. It feels that people who are more terrified are more tasty, which is why lately its main course has been kids. So, how is the film? Well, it's better than the 1990s miniseries. A brief side note, the 1990s It TV miniseries is what got me into reading Stephen King novels. I remember enjoying the miniseries, and from that point on, I would read the novels before they were adapted into TV or film. Well, until The Shining 1997 anyway. After seeing that miniseries, I just skipped ever reading the novel and pretty much stopped reading King after that. There are some pros and cons about the film. The acting, The Losers Club. All the kids acted great. They had excellent chemistry with each other and they pulled off the comedic and serious bits. Pennywise. Bill Skarsgård was a good Pennywise. He had a different performance than Tim Curry, but was still able to show the characteristics of Pennywise. I'm still reading the book, so I can only judge his performance with Tim Curry's, but he delivered the right amount of camp and unnerving feeling the movie needed. The writing directed. The writing made the kids sound like kids, not small adults or whatever films usually do, but how real kids actually act and talk in those particular situations. The film was well paced. It was almost as long as the film Detroit, but it didn't feel like it. Comedy was used at just the right time, even immediately after a scare. It believably diffused the situations. It was also impressive that the tension was able to build so well during the daylight scenes. A lot of horror films focus on night scares because it's easier and the filmmakers aren't talented enough to execute them effectively during the day. The only real issue I have is during some of the action scenes there is some shaky cam. It works for a scene, but the constant use did get a bit distracting. Also, there's a certain scene near the end where someone's revived by True Love's first kiss, which was kind of cheesy. The special effects. This film cost under $40 million, but it didn't feel like it. Considering this is a tentpole film, I thought this film's budget would at least be twice than it really was. There's a great use of CGI and practical effects in this film, especially during the climax when you see what happened to the other kids that Pennywise dealt with. I'm actually surprised that this wasn't shot in 3D. It would have drove up the cost of the production, but I can imagine some of the scenes would have had a more dynamic impact on them. Like the one when Pennywise confronted Beverly. I'll just leave it at that. And here's some cons. 1. The action. It's not as gory or as scary as people say. Okay, so this is a matter of not living up to the expectation of what people said about this film. From what I've heard people say of the book and of this film after leaving the theater, as well as looking at the trailers, I expected something more intense and horrifying. An example would be George's death. I felt sad for him, but it didn't hit me as hard as I thought it would. There was a good amount of tension, but the film didn't unnerve me like Get Out did earlier this year. As with most supernatural stories, I question the kids being able to stop Pennywise. In most ghost, demon, or whatever horror stories, I find it difficult for the protagonist to defeat the demon without some supernatural weapon. The monster always has an upper hand in these types of films. However, the conceit of this story is that Pennywise, just like Freddy Krueger, is only powerful when you're frightened of him, so I gave this film a pass. That said, it does bring into question just how the adults will defeat him in Chapter 2. Now, as far as the characters go, the adults don't have very much depth. They appear only one note. I assume the reason done for that is the point of the story is about the kids and you need to have them isolated off from the rest of the world. Oh, and another thing, if you hate the one-note bullies from previous Stephen King films, they're back. With the exception of one 2-minute scene, we don't get an understanding on why the bullies are the way they are. They just seem to be evil just for the sake of being evil. When they disappeared after about the first half of the film, I completely forgot about them and the film ran pretty good. Once they were reintroduced, I started rolling my eyes because I knew what was going to happen. Next, The Losers Club. This film is an ensemble, which is usually good, but one of the problems with that is when a film decides to focus on mainly a couple of the characters. Bill being the main lead makes sense. He also has the greatest character arc. After that, Beverly gets the most development. The rest fight for screen time and a few are mostly forgotten. The best examples of that would be Stan and Mike. They were around and did stuff, but I can't remember any of their character traits. Also, Mike seemed to be there to spout the occasional exposition. All things considered, what the filmmakers should have done was to consolidate the characters, have only 4 instead of 7, and then have the traits of the other 3 incorporated into the 4. With all that being said, I do recommend this film. It's a really good film. The film lives and dies on the shoulders of its main cast, and they were more than up for the job. The film was well paced, and while watching, I wanted to spend more time with the kids, which got me to thinking. This film could have been even better if it were a limited series. Imagine breaking up the story into 2 parts, but each would be a season long with about 6 to 8 episodes. This would give more time with the characters, and the one-note ones would get some decent development. I also wondered, why did Warner Bros. Only make this one film and not film both parts back to back? Filming back to back would be cheaper and they would be able to strike while the iron is hot. As is, the second It film won't come out next year. It might come out in 2019. One last thing, I know people are going to comment on how this film is aping Stranger Things as if it's a bad thing. But here's the thing. Stranger Things was obviously inspired by Stephen King films like Stand By Me and, yes, the 1990s It. So it all comes around eventually. See this film, it's really good. And on another side note, at the end of the credits, we hear Pennywise laughing and it said It Chapter 1. So obviously, Warner Bros. Has plans for a sequel. If you like this video, then please share it and subscribe. I'm still on my quest for 1,000 subscribers. And until my next video, have a good day.